Hi everyone, Angus Campbell here. Saturday the 28th of March 2020. I'm waiting for the odd bits and pieces to arrive regarding finishing the control cables on the A70. However, while we're waiting for those, what we can do is finish off the electricals. So again, it's all little bits and pieces and detail jobs, but they all take the time really. But what we'll do is try and finish off the main wiring so we can get it into a position to test. So, although the main harness is in with most of the components, we've got one or two bits to do. You won't be able to see too well, but down here on the right hand airbox plenum chamber is where we mount the Zener diode, and we'll wire that in. So we'll need to get to the other side of the bike and take the air filter cover off. To do that, that's easy enough. Some HT leaders just arrived, so we can make up the HT leads from the coils over to the plugs. And then at the front end, we've got the front wiring harness extension to go from the main loom over to the headlights, with all the associated switches and warning lights, etc. And we've got all those, so we'll be able to sort that out. So here's the simple front loom extension into the headlight. As you can see, it's a new one with these modern bullets, which I don't like very much, but they do work, and at least they're soldered on and not crimped. I don't crimp at all. One thing I have noticed with this is there should be 3 warning lights at the front, and we've got the indicators and the oil pressure, but for some reason they haven't put on a high beam. But we've got one of those in stock, so we can use that. So we've got that to sort out as well. And then if there is anything else we need to do regarding soldering, etc., we've got all the parts in my electrical stash, etc. Now I've got the spark plug caps here. There should be another one here somewhere. There it is. So those are the 2 caps. We've got the HT lead. There's enough there to do the Fury when we get there. We've got bulbs if we need them, but we shouldn't need those. And then we've got all the connectors to solder up. Oh, and with respect to HT leads, what we've got as well are the special connectors for the coil end with the covers. So those press on the HT lead. There's 2 there, stuck together. Press those on the coil end, and there's the cover for the coil end too. Original Lucas parts. So what we'll do first is let me pull the bike out so we can get to the other side, and we'll begin by installing the Zener. And actually the Zener should be over here somewhere. There it is. So obviously it's a used one, you can't get these now. There are some reproduction ones, but they're over in the US. But this one's pretty clean and tidy, so we can test that out. I've tested it as far as I can on a meter, but you can't really do it too much because there's limitations associated with that. They're quite a complex thing to test. The best thing to do is get it on the bike with an ammeter. But this one I think will be okay. The only thing that's a bit disconcerting is that somebody's ground down the connector to accept a smaller spade at some point, but that should be okay. Right, let's pull the bike out and we'll get cracking. Right, bike pulled out, so we're on the right hand side. So just one nut to undo there, and gently pull the cover off from the carb rubber, and that will get us into to take the filter off and get to the back of that plenum chamber where we need to mount the Zener. Right, there we are, we're in. and makes it a bit easy to see. So from this side, the Zener fits in that hole there. That's just to accept the stud with the nut on this side and the Zener pointing on the other side, so we can get the wire to it from the battery area. Right, there's something I'm not entirely happy with actually. So we've got the spade live wire connected up fine on the Zener, and focus. What we have to do is we have to provide a direct earth for that Zener, and because of the way that this is mounted, that earth wire loop has to be on the Zener side of its mounting rather than the stud side, because you can't get the earth wire around the other side where the stud nut is to mount it that side, because the filter fits flush to this edge. There's no other hole to do it, to get it into the plenum. So that means the wire has to sit and be trapped on the Zener side, but then because they've put that small loop on that wire, it means the Zener doesn't fit very flush with the plenum chamber, which it's supposed to do so that heat's dissipated properly from the Zener. So I think I'm going to chop that loop off and put a bigger loop on there, so we've got a bigger seating surface for that Zener, which is the whole idea of having this broader flat surface to increase the surface area for heat dissipation. So let's do that first. Let's do it properly while we're here, because Zeners are all important to stop overcharging of the battery, and when the batteries boil, the acid can wreak havoc everywhere, as probably most people have had some experience of in the past. So let's get that sorted out. Okay, I've got a much bigger loop, which will give us much more surface area contact, and also will mean that the Zener will fit flat rather than to one side because of the wires being trapped underneath. This actually clears the Zener. So I've cut the other loop off, and come on, finger focus, and I've tinned the wires. This is a crimp on, but I do solder as well, and we won't need to insulate this because it's earth. Right, we'll get that fitted on and then we should be away. Right, that's the earth terminal crimped and soldered on, and I've just placed it on the stud there, so you can see that it fits nice and flush, and that the wire aspects of it doesn't get trapped underneath and therefore affect the way that the Zener sits flat, or will sit flat on the terminal and then on the plenum chamber. So let's get that mounted up now. Okay, there we are, job done, and I've mounted it in such a way where the spade terminal is connected top down, so the Zener spade is up, so hopefully there's less likelihood of the spade working itself loose and popping off from vibration if the spade was facing downwards and the clip could actually fall off downwards. Hopefully that will prevent that. Right, like I say, all these little bits and pieces just take so much time, but that's it. Job done, and nut tidied up on the other side with a spring washer. We can put the cover back on now and move on to hopefully more productive stuff at the front end. Right, next job while we're at this end is actually to wire up the main key and ignition switch. And the best way to do that, to make sure we get that right, is to take that off. I only mounted it up originally really just to put it into position, so I didn't mislay it anywhere. So we'll just unscrew that, and then we'll connect these wires up here, and we can see which one is going to be lights. That's going to be live. Oh, sorry, lights, live, ignition probably. But anyway, we'll just look at the wiring diagram, remove that switch and we'll get it wired up. Right, there we are in the wiring diagram. Terminals labelled 1, 2, 3 with a brown and blue, white and brown and green, and it all matches up. So we've got brown and blue, brown and green and white on terminals that are marked up on the switches. You can't see them, but they are labelled, just see them 1, 2, 3. There is a fourth there, but we presume that's unused. So that's actually labelled up and connected up as documented. Amazing. Right, let's get that mounted up. Okay, that's that one, that job done. Mounted in pretty well, wires are routed correctly, and as I say, connected up as labelled up in the manual wiring diagram. So right, let's continue just to work forward slowly. So next thing, HT leads. Right, so what I've done with the, this is a copper cord HT lead as was used originally, so we can screw on the caps on the end. So we'll route these as they were originally, whereby they get clamped to the frame here and then go in front to the carb behind the rocker cover and then onto the plug, so that the routing's quite nice and neat and tidy. And we'll allow a little bit of slack back then under the frame loop and then into the top of the coil with the right connector that I showed you earlier. So we'll get those two leads made up and then we'll connect each side up, and that'll be this end done. We can move forward then to the headlight. That's better, that's focused now, better. Okay, second HT lead in and routed, so that's that job done. We'll just need to tidy up the cable routing in general once we're finished under here, and we'll get the proper metal clips around the spine, and that will then tuck in the HT leads on each side. They look a little proud here, but they are okay. That's how they were routed originally, and the seat does close okay without any fouling, straight down. So that's fine, there's enough room there. Right, now we'll get up to the front, get the headlight lens out, and then we'll start routing this this front loom. Right, where I've got to then is, firstly, the small front loom is here, and these components here will go through the boot into the headlight. And I'm just thinking, maybe I've done this, threaded the small loom through the wrong way around really, and maybe I should have put the other end of it through the boot from the front. But anyway, I should be able to get these through one at a time, so we'll see how we get on with that. This separate strand here, that's for the front brake light switch on the cable, which is why it's separate. The rest of these wires go, and obviously the warning lights go into the headlight. At the other end of the loom then, we've got all the terminals that will then connect up into to the main loom here. So that's just a lot of bullet connectors we're going to need there to marry those up. This lengthy cable here, that goes down the front down tube to the oil pressure warning light switch. And then the handlebar switch cable threaded through the grommet in the headstock, and again this side's here and plugs into the main loom. Similarly, the other side here I've got to thread through that grommet there so it comes out and everything connects up underneath here. So we'll get cracking with that. It should simply be a case of colour to colour. There's going to be some double connectors, some singles and a triple, and I've got plenty of those up here somewhere. Yeah, here we are. The grey ones are the triples, they're the doubles, and the singles. Won't need the bullets, hopefully. So let's crack on and do a bit of, well, first of all we'll thread that through the front, and then we'll begin doing a bit of connecting up here, but also I'll get the other end of the front loop through the headlight boot, as the headlight is pretty much empty at the moment. And I noticed that it does have some sort of small cable clips here as well, to try and keep everything as flat as possible. We'll see how we get on with that when we get up this end. Right, let's start threading and tidying up and see if we can get most of these connected. Oh, one other minor point as well is that with respect to the main loom which we've got here, there's another spare off here, and that's for the points connection which comes up at the back here from the engine. And I think somewhere, is that it there? Yeah, there they are. So that comes up from the back of the engine, and we'll need to connect that up to bullets up here once we've routed that properly as well. So it's just a matter now really of getting on with some connecting to make sure everything marries up, and we'll try and get everything routed through it so it's fairly neat and there's not a ton of spaghetti junction, but it should be pretty okay. It's just a case of making sure the connectors are nice and tight. Right, about an hour and a quarter, hour and a half later or so. Right, we're getting there. So everything is connected up here in this bundle of joy. It looks a bit messy at the moment, but I think we can tidy that up okay so it's nice and tight behind the horn. I think basically up there. So it's, don't think it's bad as it looks anyway, but all the connections are nice and tight. The only one that's not used is the red white wire here, which I think on the Fury is going to be the electric start button from the right hand handlebar switch, right or left hand, I can't remember now. Left by the look of this, which is probably wrong, but anyway it'll do for now. So that's that main junction done. This wire going back here is now connected up to the contact breaker wires coming up from the engine and routed round the back of the air box and out the bottom, so that's good. And then we've got the wires through to the headlight, which is going to be the next centre of attention, just to connect up the lights and the switch, the main headlight switch which sits on the top here, and also these two pairs of wires which are for the illumination within the speedo and the tacho. So we're getting there. So we'll now focus on this front end with the headlight, which isn't too bad a job, but there's a bit of soldering and messing about to do here because they've left some bare wires, but we'll crack on with that now. It shouldn't be too bad a job. Right, everyone, next morning back in the garage, Sunday 29th. So carrying on with the front end electrics behind the headlight. So looking at this headlight unit, it's potentially all wrong. This came as a replica part with the headlamp shell, so it's for 71 BSA flat banked headlamp, but the wiring colours are actually for I think probably a Japanese bike. The colours are all wrong. These should be obviously the earth should be red, and the low beam and high beam should be either blue and white, blue and red. With respect to the side light, normally this is earth through the reflector, but we've got a separate earth wire on this, obviously live and earth, wrong colours, and also wrong type bullets as well. Those bullets are from early 70s Japanese, so this is probably a common unit that they deliver with other shells, but it's easy enough to sort out. So what we'll need to do first of all we need to get bullets on each of these, and the second thing is we need to replace those bullets. So we've got all the soldering kit at the ready, so we can secure everything down and get some standard Lucas bullets soldered onto that lot. So that's the first thing we'll do. Okay, that's that job done. So all the terminals now have got the correct Lucas bullets soldered in. So again, just to repeat, this is the pilot light. So one of those is an earth, and one will go to the normal light circuit. And then for the main headlight, one of these will be earth, and it's actually the green wire, as it's common there. And then the other two wires of high and low beams. Oh, sorry, nearly sneezed then. Sorry, main and high beam and dip beam. I'll get that right in a minute. So that's that prepared. So the next thing is just have a quick look in the headlight itself and marry the wires up. So we've already got the indicators plumbed in because that's easy. One indicator goes to red green, and also you've got a separate wire from each side that goes up to the warning light. There will be a bulb in there, and the other side is indicator into white green. We might have those the wrong way around, but obviously we just have to switch the bullets if we find that when we do some testing we've got the say rear left indicator and front right. So that's easy enough to sort out. So the next thing then is we've got to plumb in the top here. This is the headlight, the main headlight switch only, and all this does is it takes a feed from the main light wiring circuit, which is this brown green wire here on one side. On the other side it goes out to the headlight via this blue one, which goes up to the dip switch on the handlebars, and then the dip switch comes back to the two wires here. One is blue white and one is blue red for the dipped and main headlight. Now the reason why the brown green wire that goes onto this switch has got a bullet on it rather than just being a blind end to screw into that is because this needs a bullet connector on it, because this splits into both the switch and also connects up the live wires from the illumination bulbs for the clocks. And with respect to these, I've just realised actually we might have to put different bullets on these because they're the Japanese style bullets, which are too thin. So we'll have to sort that out. But for each of these, one is obviously red is earth, the other is live, and all the red earths come back to a common point, so we need to connect all those up with a bullet connector as well. So I think we've got that sorted. So first things first, I'm going to need to get these bullets swapped out, forgot about that. And then we'll need to mount the headlight switch next, because that goes in from the top rather than bottom up, so you've got to put that in first before you connect up. And then we just need a couple of additional wires to plumb into the lighting live circuit, so that we've got one to the switch and one to feed the clock illumination. Right, I think we've got that sorted. Onwards. Right, I think they're all connected up, so needs a bit of tidying up because we've still got the little warning lamps, 3 of them now. There we go, to plug in at the back. But it's been made a little bit more complicated in that, with respect to this light unit, the lights aren't earthed through the case, they've got the separate earth wires. And that means then that you've got to effectively use more splitters and put an extra connector in so you can effectively split the wires, both on the earth side and on the feed side. So it's ended up a little bit more complicated than I thought, but we're all plumbed in now, and all with soldered nipples, etc., so we should be okay. So what I'll do now is I'll get the warning lamps mounted up on the back there, and then we'll do a bit of tidying up, and then we can be in a position then to fit the battery and test. Right, there we go, warning lights all in at the top, and that's probably as good as we're going to get, really. We just need to leave this space here clear so the rear of the lamp housing fits in there, and that's the reason for that rubber boot, because of the nature of the shallow shell. And actually that rubber's not in quite properly. But anyway, we'll just reseat that, and then we'll put a battery in and see what happens. Right, battery seated. I've got the earth wire connected up, and I haven't got the live side connected up yet, because we'll just do a quick spark test on it now. And okay, no sparks, so that's good. So right, now we'll connect that up, and then we'll get ready to do some testing with the ignition switch. Right, pretty good news. So with ignition key, if you turn the top left, you should get parking lights, and we do. So we get rear light, and we get front side light, which is lovely and bright actually, but it is just the side light on, so that's good. Next thing then, back to off position, and then first position clockwise is ignition, which we can't test ignition side just yet, but we can test indicators, and we've got a slight problem here in that if we do what's down, left indicator, we get both the rears flashing, none of the fronts, and not the warning light. And if we turn right indicator, we get a couple of flashes and nothing else. Left, right. So there's something up with the wiring there, so I'll check that. But the other good news is we've still got ignition on, but if we turn clockwise second click, we should get lights as well, which we do. So that's got side light at the front, which is correct. And then if we turn the main light switch on, we do get main headlight. Now I can't tell at the moment when that's dip or main, but the good news is that if we test the dip switch, it does work, and the main being warning light comes on as well, and it does change the bulb at the front. But I just need to make sure I've got that the right way round once we mount up the headlight properly. Not sure. And also, as you can see, the clocks are illuminated. So I'll have a quick look into what I've done now with the indicators, but I've probably got a couple of wires crossed on that one, so that should be easy enough to fix, and then we'll have another go. Right, made some more progress into why the indicators weren't working properly. First thing is that there were no bulbs in the front indicators, which is a bit of a problem. Second thing was that there's this problem with the indicator switch. So let me just turn this on. Left indicator works fine. Right indicator flashes once, but if you hold the switch up, it works. So there's a slight fault in this switch, so we'll investigate that. Third thing is that the way that I'd wired in the warning light, the indicator warning light at the top here, was that it was straddling both the left and right, so it's shorting them both out. So I've totally made a mess in the way that I've wired that up, so that's pretty simple to rectify. Other thing is that the brake light does work, so the rear brake light switch is operational, so we've managed to test it on that, so that works. Front one, the cable's not installed yet, so the two wires over the top here are for that when we install that. Also the flasher works, but the horn doesn't, but I think that's due to the horn needing a bit of a tune, so we're going to attend to that. But we're almost there, so pretty pleased with that. I'm going to put the lenses on now on the front indicators, and then I'll have a look at the left-hand switch block here to see why that's not working too well. But other than that, I'm pretty pleased with that, because most things are working. So we'll leave it there for now. That's taken some time to do that, simply because of all, as I say, all the little tiny jobs that you need to do to get little connecting cables sorted, etc. Just because they're with the new wiring harness and with pattern parts, etc. There's just slightly different ways in which they wire things up, especially with, you know, not using the frame or the components as base earths at the front, using separate earth wires. So lots of little tiny bits and pieces to do, and it just all takes time. But that's a major piece of work done in getting that harness up and running. I'm pretty confident we'll be okay on the ignition front, but that will probably be the next job with this, is testing the points and ignition side and then timing it up, so making some big progress now. So we'll leave it there. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. Thanks for your interest, comments and subscriptions, and I'll see you all again soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye. Stop press. Just had to have a go at sorting this out, and I did take this switch apart and find that one of the terminals was slightly bent. So I think we're all okay now. So we turn that on. There we go. Right indicators, and that was the dicky side and left, and that's fine. All working well there, and also fiddling around with a few connections on the horn, and off we go. That's the horn working too. So all I've got to sort out now is just the correct wiring up of the indicator warning light in the headlight. I was actually shorting the two together with that, so I just need to get my brain in gear over that, but cup of tea first. Right, that's definitely it. Thanks again, everybody. See you again soon, and as I say, next stop will be checking the ignition and sorting the ignition timing out, but also as well, I'm waiting for the final control cables as well, so we can finish off the front brake and then the throttle and choke cables, and finish off the control side of it, and then we'll just be about there. So nearly there. Big step forward though, getting the wiring finished. So all good. See you again soon. Thanks again, everybody. Cheers. Bye bye.